Mrs. Jamie Stoops, U.S. Air Force wife, arrived here just before Christmas.
Oh, I must tell you, we moved into our home without closets, without a phone, without heat, and I had no car. At this point, I was ready to pack up and go. I really was. I was terribly depressed. Now, I had fortune enough to have a girl live down the street who was English, and she showed me a lot of the ropes. But at one time, I thought about getting, a tom-tom drum and beating out signals to somebody, because I worried, if anything happened to the baby, what would I do? The only thing I figured, I could hail the milkman down, and say, drive me to Bentwaters. I felt isolated entirely.
They don't give us the opportunity to get to know them. We'd like to, and the ones we get to know, we find we get on very well with, but it's small compared with the number of people that do come and live in the village.
This is America, in Britain. 65,000 servicemen and their families live here, guests of Her Majesty's government, defenders of the free world. 12,000 of them are posted near Woodbridge, a market town in Suffolk. They're stationed on 2 bases 6 miles from the town. They're their country's ambassadors, and they've brought a little portable America with them. These flyers even have a 2-channel closed-circuit radio station to provide a familiar sound.
The sound of Ray Conniff on Armed Forces Radio, the song Do You Know the Way to San Jose, made so popular by Dionne Warwick. Here's a late news story from the Armed Forces News Desk this afternoon. Sources close to the South...
The free voice of Radio Bentwaters sums up the independence of the base. It's self-contained and self-sufficient, and for those who manage to get a house on the base, they need never cross its boundaries. Always within range of their own radio station, their own snack bar and shops, their own gymnasium and theatre. Clubs for all ranks, a chapel for most denominations. It's all there for them, just like home.
Back to more music. We'll join the voice of Patti Page and a song entitled This House.
Sergeant Shaw.
Yes?
It must be very comforting for the Americans in Bentwaters to have their own radio station.
Well, we hope that it is. We endeavor to provide the stateside sound that they're used to hearing in the States.
Is it part of home for them?
Yes, I think it is. We try to make it as natural as it would be in the United States.
An all-American education is provided on the base for all age groups. So for the children, life and the school syllabus go on uninterrupted, with the familiar stateside routines and rituals.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
And it's a fairly simple matter when the time comes to move on, to parcel them up and put them on another base, in another school, in another country. Adjustment for their parents has been streamlined too. They can shop on the base for familiar products in familiar surroundings. The clothing is flown in from New York, even the meat comes from Washington D.C. But the time inevitably comes when new arrivals must step outside this enclosed world and come face to face with their first natives, us. They feel safe on the base, and off base don't want to tread on any toes. And most of all, they live in fear of hearing the cry, Yanks go home. So as protection, they are heavily briefed and given booklets. Wherever they are, the drill's the same. It could be Spain, Greenland, or Vietnam. But this is England, an orientation time.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm Captain T.G. Burns, your Wing Information Officer. Earlier this morning, you heard Colonel Dorman address us. Also, you heard Ms. Jackie Arrington, our British Community Relations Advisor. And with that, I'd like to cover some items on our Certificate of Orientation. I believe all of you have received this.
Clause by clause, the captain guides them through the printed list of pitfalls for new arrivals. Host nation, religion and politics, it reads. Their sensitivities and situations to be avoided. Traffic safety and cultural shock where applicable.
Another thing, that in our country we're very fond of dogs. But in England it seems everybody not just has one, but might have 2 or 3. So I think in your stay here you will notice, probably yourselves, you will get a dog. But the English are very fond of them, and they have a Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Another one you'll see in our movie, You in Great Britain. This is how the British see us. some words we might go over. This is something which, well, we being Americans and the British being British, we may speak the same language. However, that's open to debate by some people.
We share a common language with the British, but there may be times when you don't believe it.
I beg your pardon, sir. Could you tell me if there's a hardware store in the neighborhood?
An hardware store, sir? Oh, you mean the ironmongers?
I do. I want to buy a garbage can.
A garbage can, sir? Now, I think you'll find it's a dustbin you're after. Well, sir, you keep to the near side down to the bottom of the footpath, right round the roundabout, and then it's just past the bull. You can't miss it, sir.
Gentlemen, I'd like to cover now social courtesies. I think one of your first encounters with your new British friends in your new British home will be at the local, and the local is the neighborhood pub.
You may also see a certain similarity, at least on the surface, between the famous pub and the corner bar in the cities of America.
If you light up a cigarette, always offer it to the people in your group, because this is a custom that the British have, as they don't offer them a pack, they offer them a cigarette each, and they in turn, will light up, and then the next time somebody has a cigarette, they will offer you one. And also this goes along with the drinking of beer, that you don't, in other words, look or expect to have someone buy you a drink, but usually in your group, it just happens that everybody just kind of takes a turn and you get a drink that way.
But in full fairness, let it be said that in spite of all the similarities, there are differences between the British and us. There are bound to be. Differences, don't imply either superiority or inferiority. They're just separate ways of doing things. You'll become aware of them, and perhaps be disturbed at first by some of them.
I think these British are kind of hard to get to know.
Well, it seems so at first, until you've been here a while. Maybe they are a bit more reserved than we are, but there's a reason for it. After all, there's 50 million people on this little island. That's enough to make anyone respect privacy, his own and everyone else. That's about it, Sergeant. But you'll find that the British respond to friendliness in much the same way we do.
I think I'll ask these guys to talk to St. Dark.
British spend years and many hours each week trimming their hedges and making sure that their shrubbery and bulbs.
But first you've got to find a home, and the Bristol NCO Hotel is a red brick transit camp where new arrivals can stay while they house hunt, and where the captive wives get a coffee cup briefing from Community Relations Advisor Jackie Errington, based at Bentwaters, issued by our own Ministry of Defence.
If you've got children, is to invite your neighbours' children over.
That takes care of it.
True, but this is one way of doing it. Another way, of course, is that the English are great gardening enthusiasts. And if you like gardens...
I can grow beautiful weeds.
Well, this is fine. Well, as long as you keep them chopped down, actually, because they're a little bit sensitive on the subject of weeds going over into their gardens. But this is the best way. You make the first move, because the British tend to be a bit shy on this sort of thing, and if you're willing to make that first move...
I'm not shy.
Mrs. Frances Riders has only been in England for 24 hours, but she's a tourist by nature and keen for any new experience. She's heard all about brass rubbing and wants to try for herself, but Major Stuart Grattan, Orford's church warden, is happy to show her the ropes and point it all up with a bit of history besides.
Are depicted the three daughters, two of whom evidently preceded her, and they are shown carrying skulls, as I was telling you about. On the left is the figure of her son. There's the son there. Border-wise, around the slab in brass is the following further inscription, and an awful lot about them. Here lies the body of Bridget Smith. The said Bridget deceased the 28th of March, 1605, that's the date of this, and her daughter Joan, spelled John, of Robert Bent's, was married to Robert Wheatley of London, Salter, and had issue of him by one son and 3 daughters. He said John deceased.
And is he a pilot? No, he's a jet engine mechanic. So we're going to be here 3 or 4 years. And I wanted to see first I wanted to find out about brass rubbing.
Yes.
And I want to see all of England, you know, just get the feel of the place and get to know the people so that I can't actually be English because
For the husbands, Suffolk spells NATO and a working tour of duty. But for their wives, it's a matter of temperament. 3 years in England can look like one long holiday, or just cold comfort housekeeping in primitive, if historic, surroundings.
What happened to it originally?
Oh, it fell down about in 1830. The whole top was tumbled away.
You mean just from age?
Age, yes, and bad workmanship, I suppose. This used to be a poor man's cottage, a church cottage. It's now been, for years, it's sold separately.
Well, why do you call it a poor man's cottage?
Charity.
Oh, you mean it was...
on the church charity.
The sting is taken out of domestic hazards long before the families arrive here. It's all spelled out to them in letters from their sponsors, pen pals of equal rank. Sarah Yarrington is married to a captain, so she sponsored another captain's wife, Mrs. Jamie Stoops. But however many letters are exchanged, there are always some things that come as a shock.
Well, no matter how much someone writes and tells you about the cold, you are not prepared for it. Because my first night here in our house, I went to bed with 3 pairs of pajamas, 2 pairs of socks, and a sweater and blankets, and I was still cold. You're never prepared for it, I don't think. Because it's a damp cold that eats, you know, right through your clothing. And there's so many little things, it's the tiny things that you don't necessarily have to be prepared for, but they come as surprises. I know my first morning at the club with my sponsor, Mrs. Yarrington, I picked up my coffee cup and I said, Sarah, something is wrong with this coffee. There's salt in it. She says, well, Jamie, this is the way the English make it. And I feel like an idiot. But there are so many little tiny things that you're really not prepared for at all. Your paraffin heaters, the smell. And I never thought I'd see myself carrying in coal from a coal bin or lighting a coal fire. This took quite a bit, you know, of learning, really.
What other school things?
Oh, let me think now. Well, I think my biggest shock of all was driving on your roads. I nearly died. It was like a carnival madhouse because there don't seem to be any laws or regulations at all. My husband's, you know, on the passenger side yelling at me, punch it, pass him, you know. And he called the suicide lane. The minute he called it suicide lane, I was ready to get off and just, you know, forget about driving altogether. Because we have, you know, 4-lane roads, 2 lanes, and you have a whole lane to yourself to pass another car. But the suicide lane business terrifies me.
If you were writing letters, what are the little things that you would try and sort out in case somebody made a bad mistake?
I think first, I would try and prepare them mentally. I just can't stress this enough. I was really depressed when I arrived here. They say you don't see the sun and you laugh at this. We won't see the sun. But when you don't see the sun and one ray of sunlight comes to your window, you're there to greet it. And I really was depressed because the adjustments were tremendous, even though we do speak the same language. First, when I came, I almost apologized for being American. It embarrassed me to death. I wouldn't go to the butcher because I knew that he'd know I was American. And I've gotten over this since I've been here because I was under the impression that, Well, again, I was embarrassed to be American. And that's a terrible thing to say, but I thought that I would be looked down upon kind of thing. It embarrassed me that I didn't know the ropes. I wanted to be an English person.
Do you feel like a foreigner?
Yes, I do, because I am a foreigner. To this day, when I go downtown, I flub up like crazy on the money. Really, I don't know what I'm doing yet, having been here 4 months. And, the different... I am an American. I'm a foreigner here.
To Americans, there's nothing more British than Lady Alistair Graham, as she sets out on her stately rent-collecting way. She owns picture postcard cottages near the base, makes some money by letting them off to Americans like the Flemings.
Is it getting all right?
Well, do you remember the paint I asked you for the living room? Have you seen about that?
No, I haven't, and I've been so busy doing other things.
Yeah.
But I hope the new mattress arrived.
Oh, yeah, they brought it last week, and it's real nice. Yeah, we appreciate it. It's comfortable.
It's a little more comfortable.
Yeah, it is nice.
Can you burn the old mattress?
We put it in the shed. We're going to see about making a mat for the back of our station wagon, if you don't mind, to put down for the baby.
For the baby
That's
to
all
play in the
right.
back.
Oh, that'd be all right.
Instead of wasting
What
it
a
and
good
throwing
idea.
it out.
Lady Alistair, Obviously you're very pleased with these tenants.
Yes. Yes, they've been very good. They started in a very tiny bungalow at Blackshall, but it was a very wee place, and they rather outgrew that when the baby came. So as the previous tenants were just leaving, they asked if they could come here. And when I bought this place 3 years ago, I had the most wonderful tenants here. I provided the material, but he put up all these cupboards, and he did a lot to improve the place. I think Mrs. Fleming is benefiting by some of his work.
That's true. I love the kitchen. It's just like an American kitchen,
yes.
The way he put in the cabinets and things
yes,
like
the kitchen is nice.
Was he an American tenant as well?
Yes, he was an American tenant. Sergeant Poe, and I've always wished I could get his address because I meant to write and tell him how pleased I was with the way he left this cottage, and how subsequent tenants have really benefited from a lot that he did.
Have subsequent tenants always been as good?
Well, the ones in this cottage have, yes. Well, you know, people in different countries vary. There are good and bad in all countries, and some of my tenants haven't been quite so good as others. Sometimes it's the very young who are rather ignorant and haven't been taught perhaps the care of things. Perhaps they don't like the curtains and they take them down. Well, that's all right. Some of them put them away carefully and ask me if I'd like to have them back. But if I find they've been thrown away in an old shed, I don't like that so much. But I have been very lucky, and well, Mr. Black said to me when I first let, he said, you know, good landlords make good tenants.
There are some very important Americans at Bentwaters, and not the least of them is Colonel Johnny Petson, the chief test pilot. He's gone native, and at the end of a flying day he shakes off his military existence and takes on the trappings of an English gentleman. Off the base he goes, down the winding Suffolk lanes in his Buick, back to his wife and family at Noddishall Hall, his rented country seat. And for Saturday morning he has organised an extremely stately pursuit. A bad day for cock pheasants in the Noddishall district because everybody's out to get them. But for Colonel Petson it's a rare chance to merge into one of the more exclusive English ways of life and take a closer look at them on their own ground. In this case the ground belongs to the Franklin family, Colonel Petson's landlords at Noddishall, and Jonathan Franklin, his mother and sister Virginia make up the party. More than a shoot, it's an exercise in high-class Anglo-American relations.
Come on, Saber. Here. Here, Saber. Saber, come on.
The Colonel has brought along another American, Captain Martin, to lend support.
Forward. Jonathan!
Gosh, what a beautiful bird, too. Look at that.
Get in here, will you? Come on out of there. Get in here. Come on.
What do you make of your American neighbours?
Well, we like them very much, actually. Particularly Johnny Petson, because he likes the country and he likes doing things that we like doing. And has hundreds of children. And we do many things together, really. I suppose that's the thing we like most about them. Particularly him. We have others, of course, who we don't see so much, but he lives very close.
Has he got very anglicised?
But his dream, so he tells me, is to be an English squire. So he says. You ask him that, though, himself. See what he says.
Is he coming near to it?
Hen. It's all right. It's a hen. You'll have to behind if you could there. That's right. What's that? Hen, yes. What's the dog that's there? Oh, it's Pet Saber. Any more in here?
Is he coming near to becoming an English squire?
Is he coming near becoming an English squire? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. No.
Mr. Franklin said you dream of becoming an English squire.
I don't know that that's exactly true. We certainly are enjoying our stay.
Woodbridge Golf Club has an American quota of 40 out of its 600 members. There's a waiting list run by the secretary, Mr. Pattinson, with military precision.
Is it? International?
Must be.
Lot of dollars on this, Walter?
Right down the middle.
It's a gentlemanly retreat, where the country's silence is punctuated only by the occasional phantom too. The golf club's a leisurely place from which to observe the English, and although it's tricky for Americans to get in, those fortunate 40 are accepted handsomely.
But you haven't been playing very much lately, have you?
No, I've been gone for a while.
All the fair weather players, you chaps, you know.
Yeah, we like
Don't see nearly so many... There's always the president's birthday or something to bring you up here, isn't it?
How do you find that the Americans fit into a very English golf club?
They fit in remarkably well. We don't lay any particular strictures on them. We expect them to conform. They become full members of the club. They enter our competitions. They sometimes play for the club. They do, in fact, turn out some very good golfers from time to time. And they play in our competitions. If you look on the trophy boards in the clubhouse, you'll see many American names there.
Do they become more English than the English?
No, I wouldn't say that. No, they still drink Coke. One or two we convert to Watners, or Adnams, the local brewer, but we normally they seem to retain their own customs, and we try and meet them. We have plenty of lager beer for them and so on.
How does Coke go down in your bar?
Well, we don't. We certainly don't become Americanized. I don't think any of my members drink Coke. I can't think of any. Perhaps very little tiny ones.
How do you find they stand out? What are the ways in which they stand out from your English members?
Mostly dress. We dress and haircuts, I suppose. I would say the crew cut, of course, is quite familiar, and their dress is a little more, well, not to say unkindly, but a little more flamboyant, I think, perhaps. But we can recognize them by their dress. But some of them, I may say, turn out to be very fine golfers.
Aren't there differences in etiquette and formality?
Well, I think perhaps to some extent you will generally find that an Englishman comes off the course and he changes his shirt and he puts a collar and tie on and a jacket. The Americans are rather inclined to come in and sit down and have their refreshments straight away, almost just as they are. But we're a little bit, we're not too formal at Woodbridge, so that we generally get over this quite easily.
You don't get mutterings in the corners?
No, we don't. No, we don't. We don't mutter a lot at Woodbridge, you know, about anything. We live very happily.
And what about your biscuits? To us, of course, they're rolls of bread. And do you have the loaf as the loaf of bread, as we have the loaf of bread, the little Coburg loaf and other shapes?
Oh, yes. Yes, we do. However, it's quite unfortunate.
Wickham Market is a favourite village with American families looking for houses off the base. The two sides must learn to live quietly together, but it never did women any harm to wear their differences. And an American wife has finally braved that most English stronghold, the Women's Institute. Now, Mrs. Peggy Brawman handles question time with almost presidential ease. But the most accomplished diplomat can be tipped off balance. And even the best run meeting has its trickier moments.
We have a particular difficulty here in Wickham Market because we're so close to the base and our fairly largest village. We've got a lot of American families with us, and they tend to visit each other for coffee or a cup of tea in the afternoon rather than come halfway to meet the English people and come and have a cup of coffee with us. What do you suppose we could do to help them to get to know us better?
Oh, this is a difficult question. Many of these girls, you've got to remember, this is their first time away from home.
And they find that in their American neighbor, you know, it's sort of like going home to mama. They can cry on her shoulder. And to meet their British neighbor, many times this all of a sudden is sort of like a slap across the face. It makes them remember, oh, I'm really in a foreign country. I'm an alien, you know. And this is like the little English girl that said to me, well, Mrs. Borman, I thought an alien was a spaceman. So I think maybe this is where your first difficulty lies, is the fact that a lot of these girls are very, very young. This is their first time overseas. I don't think it's that they don't want to be friendly. Some of them have been scared off, possibly, as you say, by the formality. But I think the main thing is that they are just plain homesick.
Sometimes there's real trouble on the home front. On this housing estate, half the families are American, and the English began to feel swamped. Along with a suspicion that so many Americans together in one spot brought down the value of their houses, the main grumbles were noisy children and litter. So, in a not very neighbourly way, they organised a petition, and the Tyndall Biscoes signed. He's a school teacher, she's bringing up 2 small children. Didn't a petition like that put a bit of a strain on Anglo-American relations?
I thought it probably would, but it didn't seem to have done.
Yes, actually, they made a point immediately after that of having a party and inviting everybody on the estate, English and American, to it, as a sort of peace offering, I suppose.
To which a lot of the English didn't go.
Yes, and a lot of the English people didn't go, so really you can't blame them. They did their best to smooth over the, you know, torn nerves, and in fact, I think when things are pointed out to them, they're only too willing to try and put things right.
Why do you think some of the English do take such a high-minded line towards the Americans?
Well, I think they resent them being here, largely.
Yes, it starts off, I'm quite certain, that the first thing, the noise from the aeroplanes, we immediately blame the Americans for that automatically. I mean, there might be an English base here, but that'd be different, but it is an American one. And that sort of, you already resent them before they arrive on the estate because of the noise. It can be absolutely shattering, the row that the airplanes make. I mean, the children sort of come running to mother or father to try and sort of take shelter from it. Sometimes it's so loud. Depends which way the wind is and where the airplanes are landing. And so before they arrive, you're already sort of looking on them as enemies to a certain extent. And I think having sort of got that attitude, you look for things that they might do wrong.
Whereas with an English neighbour, you perhaps wouldn't do this, I think. Not to the same extent. You think, oh, these are the people making the noise, and now look what they're doing. Whereas with an English people, you think, oh, well, that's a bit of a nuisance, you know, perhaps we'll mention it to them. Or, I mean, it could happen to us too. They could mention something to us if we were annoying them. But with Americans, you think it's different. You think of them as a different group, really.
Yes, the thing we feel about that, I think, really is that we're not really sort of hosts or anything like that. I mean, they're here for their own reasons, and we don't really see why we should adapt to their way of life. They should adapt to ours. Well, that's what we feel, and they don't seem to make much attempt to. And it's perhaps one of the main bones of contention. I think that they don't try and adapt, and almost expect us to. I mean, you know, we live surrounded by Americans. Why don't we live an ordinary American life or something? We don't really see why we should.
Mrs. Lulu Pitcher mans Ufford Level Crossing near the base, and has done for 26 years. Since the Americans came, the cars have built up from 3 a week to rush hour proportions twice a day, but she hasn't the slightest intention of changing the pace of her life to fit in with them. She still moves purposefully but firmly with the gates, and always has time for a spot of happily malicious gossip. She's based her life on Rule 99 in her handbook, which says the gates must always be closed to the road. It may keep people waiting, but close to the road they're going to stay. Anyway, Americans are impatient by Mrs. Pitcher's standards, and it's the sound of their horns she resents.
Hoot an awful lot of times, because we know they're coming. And even if you've got television on, you know people are coming because the little tiny dots go across your screen. So there's no need to hoot at all, but I stuck this notice out, so that they hoot once, but they repeatedly keep hooting. We know there's a train coming. They don't know there's a train coming. You see what I mean? And because of the noise, it would annoy anybody.
Do you keep them waiting if they make you cross?
One or two certain ones I keep waiting. I didn't ought to, but then they make me mad.
What about the young Americans?
They're all right. If they don't, I don't like people who drink and come up here. Because we've had some narrow escapes. Shall I tell you about one coming down? I wasn't on duty, but I was out here, and the relief man was on. He's what they call the rest day relief, and the plate layers were working here too, so we were busy gassing. And the man, he had the gates shut the proper way. And we heard the car coming down the hill, so I said, "Look out, George, he's coming like hell." And he was. And so he opened this gate, which was wrong in the first place, but he panicked, you see. He opened this one, the car came, and he just managed to get that one back, and he crashed into the other gate post and landed up between two trees up the road. He was as drunk as anything.
Would that make you nervous of the big cars?
Yes. I'm always nervous at big cars, especially when a new American comes along, because he thinks the gates are not wide enough for his car. You know? You see him looking each side to see if the gates are wide enough, but they are wide enough. There's no car too wide to go through those single gates.
Some of them must be much the same size, aren't they?
Well, they do a lot of manoeuvring to get them through. I stand and giggle.
The native English world can be harsh outside the gates of Bentwaters, but on the other hand, the Americans can be too carefully cushioned against it. Because it's so easy to exist on the base, the officers in charge know that some of the men, particularly the young single airmen, sometimes never bother to leave it. Surprisingly, American servicemen aren't all bulging with dollar-spending money and a glad hand, as many English people fondly imagine. Many of them can't afford a car, and this in turn makes problems for themselves and for Captain Charles Glaze, the senior chaplain here.
I suspect that one of the real great problems is that of loneliness, and when I say that, it seems difficult because there's so many things to do. But we find many airmen who never really get off the base. Several reasons. One is that we have so many things on the base for them. We have many activities on the base that they can find here, which, even though they may be in Ipswich or elsewhere, are still here. So rather than making the little effort, they stay here. The other is that sometimes they just don't want to make the effort. Why? I don't know. Maybe they don't have the money, some of them. Others don't have cars. They're afraid of the money's changed first time they've been away from home, and a pound is different from a dollar, so and they're not quite sure how much it makes and so on. So there are these things, and maybe others.
Other than isolation, what do you find the main problems were?
Well, we have a real economic problem, and I mean by that our American families who are here, lower 3-4 grades, find that living off base, commuting distance sometime of 25 miles, creates a real economic problem. And with this economic problem, it brings on tensions between husband and wife and between families, so that we do have a lot of tension develop because of the economic situation. Even though we look at it as Americans sometimes being all rich, they're not, because the 4-3 lower grades find it, living on the local area, traveling, commuting, and so forth, find it somewhat an economic strain.
Do you think that the English still find it hard to believe that Americans aren't all rich and probably put pressures on?
I don't know. I think they may have a preconceived idea that we all are, but I think we could reciprocate and say we have an idea that all Englishmen are lords, and I come to find out they're not.
cottage in the country, which one day finds itself in the middle of something big. F-100s take off overhead, or taxi past the privy at the bottom of the garden. If anything could be more English than the spinster lady owner, the Americans have probably yet to discover it. Miss Napier has lived here all her life and isn't intending to move. But she does sometimes wonder if the Americans don't think it strange that she's still living there.
I think they really do think so. I think they do that, you know, because when they sort of the new ones come, and then the other ones go away, you see, and the new ones come. Well, I naturally don't know who I am, you see. I don't think they realise I live here sometimes. You see, they think perhaps I'm somebody come on the drone, you see, but I'm not. I've noticed that much.
Haven't you ever thought of getting a job on the aerodrome?
No, because not to work for them. I don't.
Why wouldn't you like that?
Well, I don't. You see, they have different mannerisms to ours, much different.
Do you go out and watch the planes sometimes?
No.
Aren't you interested?
No. I mean, you just don't. There's so many planes, you actually wouldn't go out and watch them, would you? Not me.
They come close enough as it is, do they?
Yes, they do.
It must have changed a lot since you were young here. What was it like when you were a child here?
It was beautiful. It used to be a big green, plenty of wind bushes stand out there, and all green, and two very large woods right around, you know, and drives in. And a beautiful lot of may trees each side up the top. Oh, it was, and honeysuckle. And there was a tree as big as this, and it hung over like that, and it was full of beautiful pink blossoms, and you could smell it. Oh, it used to smell like heaven up there. It's true, it was lovely up there.
Men in uniform and men away from home. The problems are no different for American GIs based in England from those faced by British soldiers on the Rhine. The American solution, a 3 times a week dance at the Airmen's Club. The result? Friendship, fraternisation, and the occasional diplomatic situation resolved at a personal and social level. For the organisers, an ever-present problem, the girl shortage. It takes 2 to tango. With stateside efficiency, the local talent is imported from nearby Ipswich by the pulchritudinous coachload, a sharrowful of what every lonely airman sometimes feels he needs.
Have you been up to the base before?
Yes, dozens of times.
When did you first start going up there?
July.
How did that happen?
Well, to be quite honest, a friend of mine said to me, how about coming out to the base? And I said, right, went out there with the Americans, you know, and all the rest of it. She said, well, I'd enjoy it, so I came out and I did, and I would go anywhere else.
Did you meet anybody when you got up there?
Yeah, dozens of them. I had a ball. I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't go anywhere else to any other clubs or anything like that. If I ever go out, I always come out to the base anyway.
Do you like Americans?
Yes, very much. I think they're a lot better than English boys. I mean, I was married to an Englishman and that broke up, and this was long before I ever started to come out here. And I find now that, well, I wouldn't go out with an Englishman again. I don't know.
Why not? How are the Americans better?
Well, they're more thoughtful. They treat you different. You know, I get up in the morning sometime and there's a little letter, and I sometimes get flowers and, you know, and things like this. And I think they treat you a lot. They got more respect for you, I think.
You got a special boyfriend up there?
Several.
What about you? How did you first get to go up there?
A friend asked me to go with her one night. That's 2 years ago, and I'm still going out there. I never go anywhere else.
Why do you like the Americans?
They treat you better, they're more thoughtful, and they treat you like a woman, you know?
Would you go out with an Englishman now?
No.
Why
No,
not?
it don't appeal to me at all. I don't know, they've got no scope. They don't know how to look after a woman, do they?
No, definitely not.
What about the rest of you? Do you prefer them to Englishmen?
Well, I haven't got any, special about anybody. I like English, Chinese, it doesn't matter who they are. And if they've got respect, they're all right, you know.
It's inevitable that hijinks on the dance floor sometimes go further than that. Of course, girls get into trouble from time to time and wind up in the ranks of this country's unmarried mothers. Jessie Murray met and loved an American airman. When she discovered she was pregnant, he asked her to marry him, but she turned him down, worried about a shotgun future for herself and the child, now aged 3. After her little girl was born, she only occasionally saw the man.
I saw, he used to come into the shop where I worked after I had her. I went back to work, and he used to come in. He didn't even used to ask how she was or anything like that.
Do you think he was frightened or just not interested?
I think, perhaps he just wasn't interested in the end.
After how long did he go back to America?
I think she was nearly a year before he went back to the States.
And he never came to see her?
No, never. Never saw her once.
Did that upset you, or were you glad?
I was glad in the end, I thought she was mine and no one could have her.
What about money? Did he help you at all that way?
No, never. I didn't try for maintenance or anything from him.
Why was that?
Well, I heard that if I tried for maintenance, he could have a claim on her, and I didn't want him to have any claim on her at all.
Were you frightened he might try and take her back to the States?
Yes.
Had that happened to people you knew?
No, I'd heard from people, that it could happen, so therefore I wouldn't claim.
How do you feel about the baby?
Oh, she's lovely. I wouldn't part with her for the world. She's well worth going through everything I've gone through to keep her.
But it doesn't have to finish unhappily. American airmen will obviously go on taking out the local girls, and every year 150 of them set about finding a happy ever after ending in clouds of confetti and white lace as they become latter-day GI brides. The members of the Transatlantic Brides and Parents Association have one thing in common: daughters who've married a serviceman and then gone to live at least 3,000 miles away. The Ipswich Committee meets up to plan future events and exchange snippets of news from letters. The Society's journal is called Together Again, and that's how they like to be.
Well, because we know we've all got daughters away and we're all in the same boat. And probably we can hear something about our daughters, what other people haven't heard. If the girls meet up and they write and tell us about, they've met a girl from so-and-so, well, we can tell the mothers there. Because when we went over, a mother hadn't heard from her daughter. She gave me her phone number and I rang her up the Christmas morning from Texas. And it cost us about, in our money, about £2.05, but that was well worth it to know the girl was all right.
When you went to the States, what most surprised you about the way your daughter was living?
Well, the thing what surprised us when the children had they were going out to a party, they'd bath the children, put them in the pyjamas, put them in the cars, take them to the friends, and the children had all got to sleep in the room, about 6 kiddies in one room, and when we were coming home, they'd just lift them up, bring them back, put them right into bed, and they never woke up. And they just expected it. They thought they ought to go out with their parents. But I thought they ought to go to bed, but of course we're old-fashioned.
What did you say to your daughter when you first heard she was going to marry an American?
Well, I wasn't too happy, but there was nothing much I could do about it.
Did you try to dissuade her?
Yes. I said there were plenty of nice English boys about, but she didn't think so, and so there's just nothing else you could do about it.
Did you all try and dissuade your daughters?
No.
You didn't?
No, of course not. It is the man she fell in love with, so good heavens. If you fall in love with a man, whether he's an American or an Englishman or an Irishman or a Scotchman, so it's, you know, I just felt that way about it. I didn't like the thought of her going all those miles away, but no, I didn't mind her marrying American at all. And he's such a wonderful man that I'm very glad about it.
Every weekday all the year round and in all weathers, 3 men with a truck and a dustbin set off in the morning, entrusted with a sensitive peacekeeping mission to keep goodwill with the locals. It's the trash or garbage detail, a bizarre little procession which moves at a leisurely, reverent pace round the narrow lanes near the base. They comb the gutters, verges and ditches for the faintest signs of all American rubbish. This chilly morning it's the turn of Sergeant Field's little band to take to the B1069. They don't find very much, just the odd can thrown from the window of a passing motor car, but it all helps to keep Britain tidy and Host Nation Irritants to a minimum.
Sergeant Fields, how do you tell the difference between British rubbish and American rubbish?
Well, mainly it's our cans and bottles that we sell and which the British don't. And there are our companies back there like Slits, which I know they don't sell on the British market, so it has to be our bottle. And we contribute to it, so we just police it all up.
You pick the British lot up all the same?
Oh, yes.
Do you think it's all a bit cranky plodding around the Suffolk countryside picking up rubbish?
No, not really. It's all part of the job. I mean, we're assigned to do it, and we don't mind doing it. It's just part of back in Britain, really.
What do you think people back home would think if they knew your army career was keeping Britain tidy?
I don't really know, actually. Couldn't say.
Between English and Americans there are many close friendships, even many happy marriages. After all, they've been in East Anglia for 10 years now and have evolved a working formula for peaceful coexistence with the natives. So they remove the irritants as best they can, cover their tracks and lie low. The English, in return, as always, seem happy to shut their eyes and pretend there's no one there.